Okay, Jordan, thanks for jumping on a call with me. How are you?
I'm doing good. Yeah, doing good, Todd. Thank you. How you doing?
I am okay. It's a good day. It's hot. I don't know if it's hot where you are, but it's very hot here.
It's just starting to change for us. So I'm down in Orange County, and we have this thing called June gloom. So the ocean, as soon as it starts heating up, it starts like getting gloomy right around the water. Huh. And so like all of June and some of July, it gets a little gloomy, but it's pretty clear right now. It's nice. It's beautiful.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Somebody ought to enjoy this week. So before we get too far into it, I should have you sort of introduce yourself for the listener.
My name is Jordan Mauriello. I'm the managing director for MoreYellow. We're a creative and talent agency. We primarily focus in the video game space. Mm-hmm. Over the last few years, we've built a roster of creators and talent. We manage the talent and work with the brands to create overall programs. We have over 250 talent on our roster that we manage now. We have over 300 million monthly video views of inventory across YouTube and Twitch, which are, the primary gaming platforms that are being used right now. So, or gaming content platforms, I should say. But yeah, and as managing director, I work with all the teams to get projects in with biz dev. I work with the teams to build the overall programs, and then we ship them. Cool.
Those are big numbers, obviously. I mean, how long have you guys been at it, and how long did it sort of take to build up to that?
Yeah, I'll give you kind of a bigger background.
Sure.
For the format. So we started in games probably a little over 10 years ago. And it was a pretty different landscape at the time. We were doing trailers. We were doing key art, like box art. We would do the game websites, and we would do the campaigns at launch. And so we were primarily just like a creative shop, and we build like these custom programs to launch the games. So we've been in the space for, 10 years. And then I would say maybe around 7 years ago, we started using these people that were online that had large followings. We didn't know what we called them at the time. These people have like a large Twitter following. We'd use them in our programs, which turned out to be influencers. We'd use the influencers in our programs, and we'd build them, build the materials, and then we'd work with them to like get all of the content out. And they would be great. They would extend our campaign. They would make it like 10 times bigger because of the amount of eyeballs that they brought to it. So we started doing it on a regular basis. And what ended up happening is we worked with all of the creators and influencers managers in order to use them in our programs. And that can be laborious. Some managers are great. Some managers are, great to work with. They streamline the process, make negotiations easier. They make getting feedback quicker, but the majority can make things complex and difficult. And so after a few years of using influencers in our programs, what we decided to do was, why don't we build a roster ourselves where we don't have to have a manager that we always have to bypass to actually have access to the creators. And that would help us, with, concepting together, coming up with ideas together with the creators. And so that would also help us on just streamlining things for our clients. And so, yeah, we about 3 years ago, we made the decision and we started building a roster of gaming creators. And so it's been a run, that's for sure. But yeah, we're over 260 now. And we have some amazing creators on our roster. And so, but yeah, so probably 10 years in the space, probably 5+ years in influencer marketing, over 3 years of having our own roster of talent.
this area changes so fast and has changed so much in a short time. We didn't really have names for a lot of this stuff just a few years ago. So my question to you is sort of, what did you set out to do? I mean, what were you doing before this? How did it kind of evolve? I mean, what's the background there?
Well, my background, I've always been in advertising as long as I can remember. I started my career pretty much in advertising. You know, I was an art director at Young and Rubicam. Even before that, I was art director at Foot Cone and Belding. So big agency world. And then I very much like the art side of things. So my background has always been design and ideas for programs. And so, but I always loved the art of things. And I always thought like creating trailers and like the actual art of motion graphics was like one of the highest types of creativity, where you'd kind of marry like sound design and beautiful sound design with like beautiful visuals, stunning, impactful visuals, and like kind of create this overall piece that all tied together and told a story. I was just like, that's an art form. And so so I was at an agency. So agency was my background. And then I decided when I started freelancing by myself actually to start. I really wanted to be in video games because of that. So I got into video games and would freelance a little bit, and we'd build trailers, we'd build trailers and build key art. And so it slowly evolved. And, when we wanted to start turning the art form into a business, I had to start working with multiple aspects of things, and sort of, what I did actually progressed from just one element of the art to the full cycle of running the business. But truly it started all just from like the love and the passion of creating really beautiful pieces.
Something that caught my eye when we set this up was you guys have some projects on your website that you've done with brands, and some of them are very eye-catching, very cool things that for games we've heard about, Battlefield, Trials, things like that. And that was something that really got me interested in hearing from you about where these ideas come from, the kind of stuff you end up doing with brands, different companies, and like what are some of those stories, because it seems like really fun work to do.
Yeah, it's fun work. I could start in so many places. Like what are some of the ways we've gotten the business, or what are some of the programs we've gotten, or
for people still trying to sort of visualize what this looks like for you, give us a story about any of the big collaborations you guys have done with hooking up streamers, content creators to do something fun with, like, say, a big studio or a big publisher to go out and just do something to get attention on, not only those talents, but also the game, the product, whatever it is. Give us what one of those might look like.
Yeah, you got it. I could give you stories all day. I'll give you this one to start. This one we did last year for a game called Riders Relay, which is a Ubisoft game. And Ubisoft's an amazing game publisher, one of the best publishers in gaming, in my opinion. And so this action sports type game, and they want to launch, in the middle of COVID or just thereafter COVID. So they come to us with kind of a brief on the game. Here's kind of how the game works. This is, these are the new features. We've had similar games like this in the past. These are features that are new to this particular game, and we'd like to launch it. But the challenge on top of building like a typical concept, that's what they come to us for. How do you want to launch this thing? What's the overall concept? And that's when we come up with like this multi-tiered campaign. Oh, you want to do this here in social, and you want to do this in your creative content. You want to roll out your calendar like this. This is where you want to allocate your funds and your budget. The challenge on this one is I come back to this with the idea, but tell us how you want to build this during COVID, because at the time, and I'm sure everybody remembers, like there was a time when like we weren't meeting anybody in public, even with masks on. We weren't even meeting people in public with masks on. So like, what? So this was like a challenging program for us. And so what we decided to do, okay, we looked into the game. First thing we do always is like, all right, well, let's check out the game and see like these new features, and let's learn a little bit about like what the game offers. And kind of one of the coolest selling points about Riders Republic is that you have this big, massive sandbox, and you can go anywhere in the world of the sandbox. And when you get to that destination, there's other players in that destination that you can play with. That live and online. And that's awesome. That's the world that they present. So you can be skiing over in one part. You can be mountain biking over in another part of the world, and doing races there. You could go over and be snowboarding in another spot. And so we were like, all right, well, there's something there. So we pitched this idea about competition, and people being able to go wherever we want. We said, hey, why don't we have a number of different influencers by themselves in different parts of the world perform legs of the race in an overall relay. And so when they finish their leg of the race, they can hand the baton off, or essentially they can touch the camera. And then when they pull out, it'll be the next influencer ready to go through their leg of the race. And then what we'll do is we'll give the exact same legs to 2 teams of 4. So you have one team of 4, team A, and another team of 4, team B, all in totally different remote parts of the world. And they run their leg, and then they hand off, and they can then get through the race, and it'll be a race who wins, team A or team B. So we picked 8 influencers, 4 on 4, all of which are kind of massive action sports people. And then also they have some gameplay on their channel. And so what we ended up doing is we set up this relay. And so you have like relay that took place like from Hawaii to all over the US to Bangkok and Switzerland. And you had all these different locations and all these influencers running a very similar course that we set up across the board. And so what we did with that final asset, we edited it all together, make that like a main key asset. And that releases on Ubisoft's channel. But then also you take that key asset, and each influencer, all 8 of them with these huge followings, they talk up what they were doing, they play the game, and then they showcase the actual relay they did. And so for the Riders Republic, we called it the Riders Relay. And it was a relay race for around the world that everybody did. And so we were able to film it, shoot it, everybody sent in their footage and edit it and put it out. It got millions of views. The game did really good. But we did it all in isolation. Everybody was able to do it themselves. So that was an interesting one. And it turned out really nice. I'm really proud of that execution.
It seems like this transition couldn't have been easy to start with sort of the ideas for brand projects, and then to branch out to actually represent the content creators, the streamers, the influencers, stuff like that, because you guys list what you do for influencers on your website. There's, help with video creation, social optimization, conversion tracking, contract negotiation. That couldn't be an easy transition to make, right?
No, not an easy transition, but I think we had the leg up in a lot of places to help us. First thing in marketing is everything changes so fast, constantly changing. Like marketing tactics that worked 10 years ago are so out of date. 5 years ago are out of date, and even in influencer marketing, everything's progressed so much. Tracking, analytics, being able to see like actually how things are performing with talent. So, if you are stagnant and if you don't continue to learn, you're going to be outdated in marketing so fast. So I think that's kind of something we've adopted early on. We knew that a long time ago, that if we wanted to stay relevant in the space, and especially in video games, you had to really want to always be learning, always be researching, always figuring out like kind of what's next and what's a good thing to actually be working on next. So learning has been part of our DNA, adopting, doing new things. And I would say like that's been very great for us. But I think one of the things is we're creators by nature, our DNA, right? Like me as the founder, I was a creator when I started, right? Not on a channel per se, but I created all of the custom programs and worked with teammates to do so. And so we had a lot of similarities. We have a lot of similarities with creators, modern day creators, essentially they're creating storylines and segments and video content, and they're publishing it on their channels. And so minus the channel, we did a lot of what they're doing. So we really understand and know how to talk to them. That's kind of been like the key from the beginning. When clients would want to do certain things, we'd be able to really kind of craft it into a story that would work for the talent. So we understood that the bridge in between us and the talent. And then I would also say the other thing that what really helped us is we really understand like marketing initiatives, right? Before jumping into the space, we really understand how do you build an overall campaign? How do you come up with initial concepts for a campaign? How do you then take that with a client and build out a rollout schedule and all the assets that you want to create and roll out and launch? Knowing that, plus also knowing the creators world and kind of marrying the two together, the transition sure was challenging because you're doing something new and you have a lot to learn and you have a lot to like kind of figure out because it's a totally new space. But I would say it probably was a lot easier for us because of our history, just understanding everything on the creator side as well as on the marketing side.
Your clients on the business side, is it primarily larger publishers like that, or do you guys occasionally work with smaller studios? I mean, how small and how fine does it get?
We worked at the beginning. We only really worked with like the game publishers that were putting out large enough programs to warrant a marketing program. So you get some pretty small publishers in there. It was really just like, can they afford a marketing budget? And I'd be like, yeah, they could afford a marketing budget. So we would, work with anybody. And as the programs got more robust, and that's what we kind of got known for, the publishers got bigger as well. And so, big publishers, they like scrappy thinkers too, like big publishers, they want somebody who can think of ideas and execute on them without tons of layers of, management. And so they're interested in people that can think, big ideas as well. So, but we were able to kind of grow into larger publishers that would allow us to do more kind of like robust or, crazy type of programs. But what I've noticed, from the beginning, is that when you delve into video games, and especially now with, such an audience in video games against our inventory, our roster, a lot of people want to be in games that aren't per se a game. So like, we'd be building a program for a publisher or a hardware manufacturer, PC hardware manufacturer. Those two audiences are so similar in a lot of respects. And all of a sudden you have like a men's grooming company that wants to actually talk to that audience as well. And you're like, all right, well, that sounds great, And so now, gaming publishers and tech and hardware companies are certainly at the core of the brands that we work with, but we very much work with non-endemic brands outside of games that want to talk to the gaming audience. So, you're working with a lot of lifestyle companies that really have never put out a game ever, and it opens up a ton of opportunities. We just finished a program. We do a lot of programs with Chipotle, and we have a lot of Roblox and Minecraft creators on our roster. And building, having our influencers interact with Chipotle stores in game. going in to redeem and get, an opportunity to redeem and get free burritos in real life. Nike, Adidas both just did some Roblox activations with us, not traditional game companies. These are, shoe companies. And so like we're working with a ton of non-endemic companies now too, that want to talk to the gaming audience. Cause it's a progressive audience. And so, a lot of opportunities outside of games now at this point, but where we started primarily just, providing our services to the game publishers.
Yeah. And as somebody in that space, I can't tell you how nice it's been, because I've been doing this a while now also. And there was a time when it was like, okay, great. Sometimes we're going to hear from potential sponsors who want to talk about hardware, like you said, software that game creators can use, things like that. And that can be difficult to drum up sometimes. So as things have opened up, and I'm starting to hear from people like, would you like to talk about, like you said, grooming products, health and lifestyle fitness stuff? Like, yes, please come in and let's do it. Like, it's been really nice. And I think it seems to me that everybody is sort of walking away from that happy, right? I mean, it's gone pretty well, it seems.
Yeah. The gaming audience is they're so vocal. And they're a community. This is like probably one of the strongest industries for community, and definitely for online engagement. And I don't know a brand that's not looking for that. I don't know any brand that's not looking for that. You have to be authentic. That is another thing. The gaming community is tough. They can be tough on you if you're not really, being authentic to, if you're saying you do all these things, I play this and we play that. And you're trying to talk to the gamers that you really don't know anything about the market, then you get yourself into trouble, because they are pretty vocal. But for the most part, as long as you're authentic and as long as you, are real with the audiences and you have a good product, like, it's a great market to be in. Very stable too. Very stable. I've been around long enough now where I've seen the ebbs and flows of the economy, right? And we hear a lot about that. And, COVID was tough on a lot of industries, and I've been through, recessions before. And it's a very stable, very stable industry. And so it's a good group. I think the brands know that, and they like to be there, and they build business relationships, and it's able to do, activations pretty consistently.
My experience was, everybody held their breath for a moment at the start of the pandemic, but I don't think the question was ever like, will we continue getting to do this? It was just, what does it look like? How are we going to adjust? And for me, it seemed like it moved very quickly. Everybody was, okay, we're all doing remote now, where only some of us were before. Now everybody is doing it wherever they are. And things started moving again pretty quickly. It was tough for conventions, conferences, the things that we love to do in person when we see each other and have our big meetings and everything. It's just that part looked a little different. And everybody, I agree, kept right on moving. So I'm curious, since you have gotten to sort of scale out what you do as you guys got started and moved into bigger business and bigger projects, what, if anything jumps out at you, what are your partners not often thinking about? I mean, I know you guys really lean hard into social and projects that can potentially go viral. Are there things that your clients aren't thinking about that you have to kind of bring to their attention? Like, hey, we also need to think about the following. Is there anything like that?
Well, we work with a lot of really smart people. I got to always say, like, the brands, they, all of the marketers that we're working with, they are very keen, and they have, a lot of great insight on their audiences and what they want for their audiences. So I would never really say like they don't know their business and they're not quite sure what they're looking for, because they know what works before they ever get to us, but I think one of the key things that we can do objectively with a lot of our clients is we help them understand there's things outside of just per se the things that their needs are. I think a lot of times, and this is a very common conversation with influencer marketing is about how much do we dictate from a brand level, our messaging and our sponsorship guidelines and what we actually want to have said in all of the video content versus how much do we let the influencers really make the content that grew their channel, that gets their audience fired up and excited about, because they know their channels better than anybody knows their channels. They know what works, they know what doesn't, down to the nuance, And so I think, what we strive to do is walk that line, is make sure we understand, hey, we know what the brands need said. They've briefed us thoroughly, and we definitely have briefed our talent thoroughly on what needs to be said. And then, giving some feedback to both ends in order to keep things authentic, but also get all the messaging out, I think is kind of really one of the key things that we do. So I think that in general is keeping that balance is super important. But then also just a few things, there's new things that we are, consistently trying to talk to people about. As you were mentioning, now that things are kind of opening back up, using influencers IRL in real life, at shows or at launches or at parties or events or at tournaments. There's so many different ways to use influencers outside of just on, just them sitting in front of their camera at their desk and then putting it on YouTube. There's a lot of events. There's, award shows that the influencers can attend, and then they can all cast it at the same time. And it just can triple, your viewership, your live viewership. And then I would say also, there's things that can be done in game experiences outside of just playing the game. I think Minecraft and Roblox, it makes up over a third of our roster. So when you think of MoreYellow, Minecraft, Roblox players and inventory is really, core to our channels. We have over 100 million views of inventory a month for those. But, doing things in game, building a Nike store, building a Spotify world. We just finished a program with Spotify, an overall world that you can build where then people can all come and play, and the influencers show those things off. There's so many things in game that can be built now, as we, start walking towards the metaverse more and more, all of these internal worlds inside the games that you can create, and then people can come in and interact and mix with. It's there's so many different ways in game to kind of change the promo, but then also, in real life, getting people out, getting influencers there to help showcase what you're doing. I think those would be a couple of them if I could name a few.
Makes perfect sense. And I guess that is sort of the next thing you're probably trying to be ready for is what does the metaverse end up looking like? How do we be ready for it, right? I mean, is that a big discussion right now?
I think it's a big discussion. I think it's a big, I think a lot of people are figuring out, what is this metaverse? I think a lot of people are figuring out how is it going to work? And, I've been following it pretty closely, the progression of it. And, I think, the metaverse isn't this whole brand new place that, we've never been. Everybody thinks of it only like this place where you put on your Oculus and you have to experience that way. There's all these little intrinsic ways of interaction that are like Web3 that, we're going to have available to us more readily. Everywhere we walk, we'll have better interaction tools so that we can, augment our reality a little bit and enhance, our in-person experiences, at simple places that we normally go to, the movie theater or the grocery store. But also, the metaverse, the way I think a lot of people are thinking about it is like this digital world where we interact virtually, where, we're wearing our headsets and we kind of have our own avatars and our own skins. And I do think we are gearing up for a major progression in that. I think, what Zuckerberg and Meta are building is, a lot of that. But I think we see worlds like that. I think Roblox and Minecraft are very much like that. I think Microsoft, through the acquisition of Blizzard Activision, I think there's going to be, obviously, I think a lot of that IP will be used on their platforms. But I think, when you have access to those studios, you're able to then compete at that level where you can build these virtual worlds where people can interact. I think, right now it's a lot of education as to what it is. I think it's just going to continue to progress. We have to build it. It's going to take years. And we're going to have more and more of these locations you can go to virtually and interact with people that are there. Very much like what games are doing now, but it'll just be, a step progressed. And then you'll be able to do more things in these virtual worlds. And I think that's kind of like remains to be seen. We'll have these great probably inventions or things that'll happen that everybody needs to go and see. Who's been one of the best at this for a while now? Fortnite. Fortnite, Epic Games. My goodness, they were one of the first. Someone will correct me on this one, but they were one of the first to do an in-game concert. I don't know if you remember this. 5-6 years ago, they had Marshmello.
It was cool, yeah.
Yeah, and that was an event. And I remember just tons of people. No one cared about playing Fortnite at the time. Everybody was there to see the show. And they've now put on probably, I think, 5 or 6 different in-game concerts. They've done product releases in-game. They've done so many different things, but it's like 5-6 years ago when they did that. These types of events where you can show up and interact in a virtual world with your character, your avatar, the person that you're used to playing, I think that's what you're going to see just a lot more of. And that's kind of, I think, what this is, the metaverse is about at the moment.
What an interesting thought, by the way, about, we all look at Microsoft acquisitions and we think about the present and the past. We go, okay, well, these games are these big libraries. It makes sense. They've got big, strong teams and everything. But I don't think we talk enough about what the future looks like beyond just more intellectual property. And what an interesting thing to think of it in terms of like, what can they compete with if they decide they do need their own virtual, ecosystem, their own virtual universe people can visit if they want to compete at that level with Facebook or, whatever Epic does next or whatever. It's like, who's doing this well? Who could do that kind of world creation? And, let's have them on the team, right? Like I'll admit, I haven't thought about it in those terms very often. So that's a cool idea,
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they're very sharp guys and ladies over there. They're just a sharp team, and they just they're not going to make they're going to make the most of everything that they can do with that IP. And I think first and foremost, I think I don't know exactly how it's going to go, of course, but right. If I'm just take some guesses, their Game Pass subscription service and having access to those games, that's low-hanging fruit, in my opinion. I think that type of stuff happens. But I do really feel like, you really have all these worlds that is familiar IP, and you have the teams that know how to build those further. And I think just playing the games is the very first part of it. Take Twitch, for instance, right? Twitch is a phenomenon because all of a sudden you have the means to watch other people play video games live, right? When that comes out. Yeah. And you would think, well, why would I want to watch someone else play? And then you go, okay, well, it's awesome. You're experiencing the game at a level that you could never reach because maybe you're not as skilled. And then you realize, okay, we're just watching on a 2D screen them play the games. And then what are we doing while we're watching is we're totally in the chat, interacting with the player that's playing, but also interacting with everybody else that's watching too. And then you get a sense, oh, this is community. And this particular talent that's playing, I really like what she has to say. And I'm interested in listening to her play while she talks. And I love the audience that comes and watches as well, right? And like, what if you can just do that in the real world, where it's like now you're in the video game worlds, but you're watching too. It's not, you don't have to be playing in all of these worlds, right? And I think that's the metaverse. I think you show up to these worlds and you're interacting, even if you're like a non-playing character. Everybody can be there and interact. And, you can go with the different influencers that are playing in that world, but you can interact with all the people on a much more virtual, real life level in those worlds. And I have to imagine, they have some thoughts as to how to compete with Meta as they progress. And I would imagine, playing the game or putting the games out in their subscription service is just the beginning of what they'll do with some of that IP.
And I'll have to admit, I mean, working in this field as I do, still the concept you just presented of, creating that Twitch sort of synergy of like, hey, bring the whole experience in with you as an environment like the metaverse is like, bring the whole experience with you in game, in experience, watch each other, be with each other while you're playing and while you're doing like that. That does honestly stretch my brain and grow my brain a little bit thinking of it that way, which is why I brought you in. So that's good. That's the expertise we're looking for. Tell me, when you're thinking about reaching out to a new content creator, new influencer, I mean, what beyond, I know you look for audience and those metrics and stuff, but I mean, what else do you look for in a potential new influencer to represent or just to collaborate with?
Yeah. We have a number of different things that we look at outside of just viewership, of course. Viewership is key. Viewership and engagement, are the first things you look at, right?
Sure.
But there's so many intangibles. Our main job as an agency with the influencers, we have multiple things that we do for them, but our main job is to get them work, get them business, right? So like the things that we have to figure out is like, what's the brand going to be interested in this channel? How can we be successful if we represent this talent to the brands? And so, number one, brand safe is something we really look at. And that's a real flexible kind of thought nowadays, is what is brand safe? I think the brands understand, personalities and they've gotten a lot less strict than, say, the guidelines of, 5 to 10 years ago with exactly, a certain type of character that they're having, be part of their programs. But I think like a big one for the talent that we like to see is, are they personable when they talk about, something that they're sponsoring or that they're doing a brand promotion for? Are they on camera? We really like it when they're on camera. The brands come to us a lot for people that are on camera that can pitch and talk and then can interact with the product and use it. And they can talk, about it in a personal way. And it doesn't feel, cliche. It doesn't feel scripted. It doesn't feel like something that like was just given to them. But yeah, I would say, just brand safe. You don't have to be on camera with us for sure, but we do like it when you are on camera occasionally on some videos. But then how do you talk about products? How do you talk about things? Are you descriptive in your format? And then, just engagement, high engagement, and good viewership, consistent viewership. We also like to see consistency. Do they put out a number of videos per month? Is there areas where they've fallen off, where like, hey, it's like you see them, they're good for like 3 weeks or 4 weeks putting out, a couple videos a week. And then all of a sudden, like a huge gap. and then they come back on, and then you have like a short spurt, and then it's huge. Yeah. Like we like to see consistency, even if it's once a week or once every 2 weeks, even. It's like the consistency really means a lot to us, because we want to make sure that we're dealing with someone that we're going to be able to get a hold of consistently, that once we actually introduce to a brand and they like and want to do business with, that they're going to have the inventory to be able to place that content on a regular basis. We like to make sure that, we are in sync, synergy off the camera. We get our managers together and talk to them before we sign them on, and make sure that there's, a lot of nice back and forth, and that they're interested in taking brand deals. We like to figure out what types of brands that they actually want to work with. Are they the types of brands that we're selling to and that we're talking to on a regular basis? Where are they looking to go? How are they going to progress? What, are the things that we can offer going to help them on their trajectory? So there's a lot outside of just the content, for sure, the intangibles. But we try and get as good of a fit as we can, because we're working with them. It's mandatory for our influencers, our managers, to have phone calls, or video conferences or Discord chats every other week. We are looking to be your manager, and weekly if we can. We always like to touch base and kind of give what's going on, what we're doing. So for their channel, there's a lot of different things that we do in the management aspect of things, and we want to make sure there's someone that we can collaborate with at that level. There's a lot of people that put out videos, but maybe aren't, wanting the consistency of running a business, and we're looking for the people that want to move, that want to grow, that, have that sort of accessibility and we can work well with.
And as we sort of wrap things up, I'm curious, because a lot of the listenership for this show is obviously a small team, game developers, solo game developers, things like that, people who are looking to expand what they do. And I hear from a lot of those people, like, I'm either not doing anything to really promote myself, I'm trying to let my content speak for itself, or I'm doing it myself and I can't wait to hand it off to someone else, either a publisher or people that they'll work with directly. So I'm wondering, people who are maybe neglecting these responsibilities a little bit of promotion, more engagement on social, things like that, what can they be thinking about as they do work toward an ad budget, or hopefully a partnership with a publisher is going to look out for them? Like, what should be on their mind?
There's a few things. I'm a big believer in, know your strengths. If you really love creating content, it's a great idea to get someone that possibly wants to sell for you. And I do think, management, MoreYellow is a great avenue to go. But let's say you're building towards that. Let's say you're building towards that and you're trying to figure out, like, okay, I want to be someone that the brands would want to work with, and how do I promote myself? One of the things I think you need to do early on is figure out who you want to talk to. So brands in particular, brands are always interested in targeting audiences. That's like one of the biggest things that a brand figures out. Who are we going after to sell or promote our product to? And so, what you want to do is you really want to figure out, who do you want to talk to and which type of audience do you want to build? So you can, build an audience that's like, if you're gaming specific, you can be super targeted. I want to be a first person shooter type of influencer. Or I want to be an MMO influencer. I want to be a battle royale influencer, right? Like I want to be fully focused on mobile games. And so you can do that. Now there are variety gamers, and they have, they also get a nice repeat business across the board in games, especially from the non-endemics. But in gaming in particular, if you focus on an actual segment, or any influencer audiences, really, if you focus on a segment and you're consistent there, I would say that's like a really great place to start. Is where do you want to build your audience? most people, and you can see this with some of even the biggest influencers, they started with a segment. And then once you grow that segment, then you can start expanding. Hey, I was very much an RPG game player, and I played all the RPG games. And then there's gamers or game publishers that would love to work with you, even if you're smaller, because you're so specific and you built that audience. But then all of a sudden, it's like, once you get to a certain size, you add on, hey, I'm an FPS player now, and I'm doing both of those back and forth. And all of a sudden, you're adding all of these. Now you became variety, and you have your core and your base, and you have a much bigger audience. And then you can expand it from there. I think that's a great thought as far as building your audience so that brands find you very interesting to want to work with. And another thing I'm a big, proponent of is do some sponsorships for the brands that you want to work with without getting paid. Just do it. Show them that you're good at, promoting, this Hydro Flask water bottle, and show them how you do it. Oh, and just do it authentically, and just be like, so stoked to have, and do promotions that are non-sponsored, so that when the brands are looking at you, they go, oh, wow, this person does really well with products. They do really well with products. They talk about them well, talk about the details and the specifics of what you like about them. So I would say, first figuring out how you want to segment your focus, what type of audience you really want to build, and also, do mock sponsorships. I think those are really good ways to, when the brand starts noticing your channel, you'll be able to get sponsorships a lot quicker, I would say.
Very cool. Well, as we wrap things up, let's make sure people know where to find you, where to find the work you do, and go ahead and take the lead on that.
Yeah, cool. So MoreYellow.com is our website. So you can see everything that we do on the brand side. Or if you're a creator, you can also apply for management there. You can see a bunch of the work that we've been doing and selling. Me personally, I'm Jordan Mauriello on Twitter. Just the L's are ones. So if we can link that. And then on LinkedIn, Jordan Mauriello. And we do a lot of, we put up a lot of content for MoreYellow, which is our agency name, on LinkedIn as well. So at MoreYellow on LinkedIn as well.
Perfect. So, Jordan, thanks again. I think there's a lot of great stuff to take away from this. And so I hope we can maybe have you back sometime and check in, see how things are going, especially as we all head toward the metaverse, right?
Totally. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you for having me, Todd. I appreciate it.
All right. That's right, friends. Game Dev Breakdown is back. If you enjoy the show, please think about hitting follow or subscribe. Won't cost you a thing, and it's a big deal on this end. We have show notes at codewriteplay.com, along with articles, news, and other stuff. You can follow us on social. The show is at GameDevPod. The website is at CodeWritePlay, and me, Todd Mitchell, at MechaToddzilla with 1D and 2 L's. Don't hesitate to reach out to help us make this the show you want to hear, and we will catch you next time. Thanks, everybody.